We have this idea that being highly intelligent is like having a superpower, right? A golden ticket to an easier life. But is that really the whole story? Well, psychology tells us there's a much more complex side to it all, one that's full of these silent struggles that a lot of brilliant minds face literally every single day. So let's explore that hidden side of brilliance.
So on one hand, you've got the popular myth. Life is a breeze. Success just happens. But then you look at the psychological reality, and it can be this tangled web of challenges that you just don't see on the surface. Today, we're really going to dive into the gap between that perception and the very real, day-to-day experience of having a highly active mind.
And this, right here, is what we call the intelligence paradox. So we're going to unpack the psychology behind these hidden struggles and really shine a light on the complex truth of what it's like to have a mind that's always on. Okay, so where do all these challenges even start? Let's begin inside, with the internal world, what we're calling the overthinking mind. You know the one. It feels like it never has an off switch. It's just constantly analyzing, questioning, and processing everything. Does this question sound a little too familiar? That feeling, that constant mental replay of conversations, decisions, situations? It's like while everyone else has moved on, your brain is still back there, exploring every single what if. And when this goes into overdrive, it actually leads to a pretty specific psychological phenomenon. And that phenomenon is called analysis paralysis. What's so wild about this is how a strength, the ability to see all the angles, actually becomes a roadblock. By overthinking every single option, the sheer volume of possibilities can make even a simple choice feel, well, monumental, almost impossible. And this internal pressure, it doesn't just stop with decisions. Oh no, it bleeds right into your performance, where the standards you set for yourself can be just impossibly high. And look, this isn't just about wanting to do a good job. It's a much more demanding all-or-nothing kind of mindset. Psychologists call this maladaptive perfectionism. And the key difference here isn't the drive for excellence. That's healthy. No, this is the core belief that anything short of perfect is a total failure. There's absolutely no room for good enough. And that, my friends, is a direct path to burnout and constantly feeling like you just don't measure up. So, how does this really intense internal world end up affecting our external one? Well, paradoxically, a powerful mind can actually create social distance, making it a real challenge to genuinely connect with other people. This quote, it just gets right to the heart of the matter, doesn't it? When your brain is just wired for complexity and depth, all of the superficial back and forth can feel incredibly draining. And you're not trying to be rude or snobbish, you're just searching for a totally different kind of connection. For a mind that's hungry for a challenge, small talk can feel just repetitive and honestly kind of dull. It doesn't have the mental stimulation you need to stay engaged. And even worse, it can feel like a barrier to real, genuine connection, which, ironically, just makes you feel even more isolated, even when you're in a crowd. Another thing that can cause some social friction is that natural drive to question, well, everything. Highly intelligent people just rarely accept ideas or authority without question. There's always a deeper why that needs to be explored.
And this is a classic double-edged sword. On one side, this incredible curiosity is the engine that drives innovation. But on the other, it can put you at odds with social norms, with tradition, and with people who just prefer simple answers. And that can create yet another feeling of being disconnected.
Which brings us to our next point, the weight of awareness. This is the emotional burden that comes from seeing and feeling way too much, and on a much deeper level than most people around you.
Just imagine, for a second, walking through the world with a filter that picks up on absolutely everything. The subtle shifts in someone's tone, tiny micro-expressions, unspoken tensions in a room. This heightened awareness is an incredibly powerful tool for sure, but it also comes at a cost. Because when you see everything, you become so much more sensitive to negativity and dishonesty. You can spot manipulation from a mile away. And all of this constant processing, it leads to this profound emotional exhaustion. It is simply draining to be that tuned in all the time.
And this gets compounded by something called emotional contagion. See, because highly intelligent people are often also highly empathetic, you don't just understand how others are feeling, you actually absorb it. You end up carrying around this emotional weight that isn't even yours to begin with, and a lot of the time, you don't even realize it's happening.
And then, layered on top of all of this, you have the external pressure. That expectation from everyone that you'll always be the smart one, that you'll always have the right answer. This pressure just fuels a deep-seated fear of failure and that nagging, awful feeling of being an imposter, just waiting to be found out.
So, after going through all of these struggles, where do we go from here? The point of this isn't to make intelligence sound like a problem. Not at all. It's about reframing it, turning these challenges into a balanced, well-managed strength.
Let's just be crystal clear about this. If any of what we've talked about has felt personal to you, the most important thing to take away is this. Your mind is not a curse. It is a rare and incredible gift that just happens to operate on a different frequency.
So, how do you find that balance? Well, it really comes down to conscious management. Things like setting boundaries to protect your emotional energy, actively seeking out complexity to keep your mind engaged and happy, finding your tribe, your people who also love to think deeply, and, so crucially, learning to embrace imperfection and let go of that all-or-nothing mindset. Just let that one sink in for a minute. It is such a powerful reminder that your depth isn't a flaw. You're not too intense or too sensitive. You are simply wired to process the world on a much, much deeper level.
And that really brings us to the final and most important question. Acknowledging the struggles? That's the first step. But owning the gift? That's the next one. Your mind sees the world in layers that most people completely miss. So the real question isn't how to stop it, but how are you going to choose to use it?